Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
So family caregivers is the topic that Leslie Curtis decided to run in our September issue. And I would say, Leslie, and thank you and welcome to the show. I always love when you're here. It's like my little pal who knows so much, and it's so nice to talk to someone like you because I'm always so disturbed about things with the elder population. You know, you, as I started very early really caring about seniors. You're a nurse, and you found your way to retirement communities.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. I worked as a nurse at the bedside and kind of screwed up my back a little bit doing that. So then I went into case management and ended up finding myself in rehab, which I absolutely love. And most of them are, 65 plus. We do have some that are younger than that. But it's not just the patients. When I do in services for customer service or anything like that, it's like the patient doesn't stop at the foot of the bed. You have the family, i.e. the caregivers, that need attention. And so that's why we started this program, which is really important. I mean, the patient's cared for 24/7 by nursing and therapy and whatever. It's the family that are in crisis, that piece of their life is missing. Whether they're living there long-term or short-term rehab, that piece of their life is missing. And Anita, dynamics of a family, when you pull a piece out, it goes haywire. So even if it's just a routine surgery, quote routine, the families are like in crisis, and they need that extra touch.
Years ago, Leslie, I dare say we didn't know about caregivers. They were just the family. Everyone took care of everybody. They lived in a house. They lived down the street. And, I'm going to Mom. I'm fixing lunch. And, it was just the way it was, right? We didn't talk about caregivers. We just assumed that role, and we just said we're family. Right.
Well, and it's still true to a large extent, but we now realize how the, quote, caregiver and or family, especially in Florida, where they're up north, they're in wherever, they come down, they think Mom's been doing fine. Well, she hasn't, and you find out all these things, and they need support. They need to know where to go. They need to know, what resources are out there. And that's one of the reasons we put this together. I mean, typically, we find a lot of our long-term caregivers show up at these different meetings that we have. But we have short-term residents, families that show up as well as actually the patients. Last month we had Jewish Family Services, and it was packed.
What were they there for? What really is the essence, if you could just put it in a few sentences?
Well, resources. To be honest, Jewish Family Services, you don't have to be Jewish to have them help you, first of all. But they have transportation. They have so many services for seniors and or family members. It's amazing.
Years ago, I was on the board of the Jewish Family Children's Services in West Palm Beach, and it's when the Russians first came in. And they didn't know what to do. They came in, and Jewish family, just as you said, they found people who had extra cars. They found people who would let them come into their home. You're absolutely right. And there, in that instance, it was people who were Jewish. But I know in a lot of times, it used to be like the Catholic schools. There are a lot of Jewish people who went to Catholic schools, so it was just whoever started. But jumping in on what you just said, so it's really services. It wasn't, at that point, my mother's doing this or my father's doing that. That's a different subject that you get to, right?
Well, and, like the lady that came in and did the in-service or presentation was bringing up the things. They now have transportation. But they can only accommodate you if you can get in and out of a car. Then she brought up May Volan, who has transportation. If you book them in advance. So there's a cost, but it's much less than calling a transport company. They have seniors helping seniors. That's free. I mean, a lot of it is based on income. So there's so many services available through some of these different things. But that was amazing. Jewish Family Services was amazing. And they have the Weissman Center in Delray that they have stuff going on there all the time. All the time. I mean, there's lectures, there's painting, there's all kinds of stuff for seniors.
But you said something that was very important. I mean, you always say important things, that if a senior is alone at home, they're not going to get to those things unless they're very smart and they have friends. So, as you were saying, the caregiver has to know so that they can say, and that still doesn't always work, Mom, why don't you go to this? Because I remember I used to ask my mom, I don't like that. Why don't you do this? I don't want to do this. And I had to really have a caregiver who took her, and then she liked it, watching the dancing. Right. It is really a second full-time job, and you have a full-time job, I have a full-time job. That's where I think the problem's coming in.
Well, it is. And, nowadays, the children of the resident, they're working, and they may have kids of their own. So they have the sandwich generation, so to speak. It becomes very difficult, especially if the patient or resident is mildly confused. They really are not able to make good decisions. It becomes very difficult. And I think that the more resources that we can give the caregivers, the higher the quality of life is for the actual patient.
That's very true. Let me just tell you, you're listening to Leslie Curtis. She's the Director of Business Development at Regents Park of Boca Raton. I'm Anita Finley, and you're listening to the Boomer Times Radio Time. And we always try to cover subjects that we think are very important. This happens to be a subject that Leslie wrote an article coming up in the September issue. Family caregivers need support, and we make certain they get it. And I have to say, I know that's true. At Regents Park of Boca Raton, who's been there a long, long time, they do treat everybody. There's a saying, and I don't know if you said it, but someone said, once you're a somebody, you can never be a nobody. And we find that in many places that care for the elder population. They're just tucked away, sit in your wheelchair, we'll tell you when it's lunch, and then go to bed. And I mean that, and it's a very sad thing. And I know that, thank goodness, the government does send people in to check on things, but it shouldn't happen that way. It should happen because your owners have always cared for people. That was even before you were there.
Right.
In the 30-some-odd years ago.
Right.
And so you're in a beautiful place, but I've always also said to you, it isn't bricks and mortar, or it isn't location, because you have it all. It's what you and your associates do in there, all your healthcare workers.
You have to care, and I think that's the most important thing is you have to care about whether they're long-term or short-term rehab patients. You have to care about the individuals, and you can feel it when you're meeting with a family, even if it's just a tour. You can see that they're stressed, and if you can pull them in and get them to work with you, which you can't always do.
For example, give me some instances.
You can do a tour, and they come in, and then the daughter goes back up north. Boom. So you really have limited resources as to who you're going to work with. If the patient for short term is with it totally, you can give her resources and stuff. But you and I both know that people, as they get older, they don't want to hear it because it feels like they're losing their independence. So it gets harder. If you can get a good home health agency in there, maybe you'll have some success. But it gets tough. I don't want to say denial, but I guess that's part of it. I mean, who doesn't live with some aspect of denial?
Well, we're not that old yet. I mean, I'm older than you, but I don't want to give up my independence if someone told me I can't drive my car anymore, or you have to have someone that's going to do this for you, or you can't do that. I would say, are you kidding? I would be so angry.
Right.
And that's what you run into, right?
Well, yeah, it's like, why don't you go to the Weissman Center or Mayvolin, and have some good times? No. And I'll tell you, when my mom, was alive, she wouldn't go because she was a smoker. So, no, I'm not going. And finally, after months of, no, because I can't smoke there.
So she told you why?
Finally. But it took months. And I was the daughter. It's like, what's the matter with you? They do a lot of fun things. No. But that was why. She was a smoker.
But couldn't you go outside and smoke?
Probably.
Right.
But, it was like, she was no.
And then, you get, and we get the same thing if they walk into Regents Park or Boca Raton. They're all old in there. And I don't want to go where they're old.
Yeah. My mother's 95, but she's a young 95.
Of course.
Okay. Don't put her with somebody old. All right. You get that all the time. And again, so often the family does not live locally, and they really have no idea how mom is actually doing.
Well, this happens, of course, you have a setting where you do watch everything, and if they have a refrigerator in their room or something, you know what's going on.
Right.
But many people who are still living in their own apartments, and when the family comes down and they go into the refrigerator and they go into the bathroom and they see that nothing's been cleaned and all the stacked up papers, and they can't believe it. So they think that in that one weekend, they'll get everything ironed out, straightened out, and then they'll go back up north.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because they find the burnt pans, or the air is on 85 degrees and it's 95 degrees outside, because their loved one is not okay. So they don't even realize this because they're talking to them on the phone. You talk to somebody on the phone, they can sound fine for 15 minutes. They really can. But they're not, and they come down, they're going to stay in the apartment or the Century Village or wherever, while mom is in the hospital or dad, and they realize what's really going on. And now it's not just a fall with a fractured hip. Now they're in full crisis mode, and they live up north, or they don't live locally. So they're taking off work. They have kids at home, and, it's really, you have to identify that stuff before you even admit them. There's going to be a problem.
And I'm going to bring up something which, I like everything to be positive, but I'd have to tell you that we hear about abuse. Elder abuse in my opinion, isn't because someone is a mean daughter or a mean son or a mean husband or wife. It's because they've lost it. They just can't keep up with what has to happen, right?
You're right. And guilt. What do they say? Guilt is not a river in Egypt or whatever. It's amazing. They're fine calling from, I'm just going to pretend New York, and they're flying down, and they get down and like, whoa. Now they feel guilty because mom has obviously been in trouble for a while, and they never identified it. Well, why would they? They talk to mom couple times a week. She's fine on the phone. She sounds like she's got it together. And then they see the apartment or, she's not okay. She hasn't been okay for a long time. She could live in Century Village and they take her in the van to go grocery shopping or whatever. But when they realize the actual situation, it becomes, it's a crisis because now where are they going to go when they're done with rehab?
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So now let's say that somebody is at Regents Park, Boca Raton, and they're in rehab, and you've taken care of their hip is doing well, they're walking, and now you're faced with sending them back home into the same situation that probably caused what happened.
We have people that we call them multiple offenders. They keep coming back pretty much for the same reason. and they are alert and oriented. They refuse to give up their independence. So the recommendation might be, it's time to look at an assisted living or, one of these places, and they don't want to. They refuse. They go back home. There's nothing you can do because of, they have rights. So if they don't want to listen to your recommendations, they don't have to. Now, if somebody's got power of attorney and they're confused, then, they can step in and try and make these decisions for them. But it's always tough.
All right, so let's give some positive information now, okay? That's what's really important. Let's talk about this situation. Let's say they don't want to move into Regents Park at this point. And what would you say that would be? Do you think that the family should encourage them to bring in maybe a companion to begin with, if they'll even allow it? Many times they won't do that either, of course.
Right.
But is that the next best thing to do, or what do you think?
And again, it depends on their financial resources. Can they afford it? We're not talking peanuts, Can they afford a caregiver? And again, if you have somebody that really shouldn't be in the home alone, and the family will put in an aide X amount of hours a day, well, you have the rest of the day that they're alone.
Well, you're right, but I want to jump in on something else. No one's watching over the aide.
Right.
And we know about that also.
Yeah.
So it's not that someone's bad, but let's say that person doesn't like the aide, or the aide doesn't cook the way they want, or there's no one really watching over. I mean, when my mother was able to have someone that stayed with her, but I was there. I was watching, and I know there were things that weren't right, and my mother would just say, well, don't get her upset. I mean, what do you mean, don't get her upset, Mom?
Yeah, we're paying her. No, and that's true. I mean, and again, we're talking financial resources. You can hire an aide for X amount of bucks and it's cheaper, or you can go through a company that might be very good, but you're going to pay more. And we both know that basically you get what you pay for. So it's really a dilemma when there are limited resources.
The whole thing. That's why I think you wrote the article on caregiving, because I just wanted to look at some of these things that you talk about. And as a matter of fact, congratulations that Regents Park of Boca won the prestigious Today's Caregiver Friendly Award in 2014. First time a nursing home earned this distinction. I'm sure that's true, because nursing homes have never had that reputation.
No, and it's interesting when we found out that was going up and they were going to include nursing homes. Well, we jumped on it, and we won. There were 3 facilities that won across the nation, but we were the one in South Florida.
Of all the places that they had, and you won. I hadn't heard about them, so he's glad you put that in there. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's not easy. I mean, you have a very large staff there. You're a very big organization, but I know so many of you, and you have such kindness in your heart, and you take things upon yourselves you don't even have to do there.
No, because both long-term and short-term, but, you get to know the long-term residents and you become very attached to them. You really do. You're their family when their family's not there. So
it's a story you told me I loved about. I didn't know that someone can cook there if they want to. And tell that story is so cute.
Oh, it's one of my favorite. I shouldn't say that, but one of my favorite long-term residents. There's 2 of them actually that will cook in the activity room their dinners. Not every night.
They have to go and buy the food.
They have somebody bring it to them, and
I can't believe this.
Yeah, and they cook. And this little guy sent me. I walked past him. He said he had something for me, and it was a little container of food that he had cooked, and it was delicious, actually. So they can do whatever they want to do. I mean, they have to be supervised to a certain extent, but yeah, if they want to cook their own food, they're able to.
I think that's really important. That was lovely that you said that. And do people, and I know you have beautiful environment outside, what if someone likes to plant flowers or a garden? Do you have anybody that can do anything like that?
Yeah, we have a little area. I mean, twice a year we actually have a whole big deal where they replant the flowers and stuff. But if somebody wants to plant flowers or tend to them, they can. Activities will work with them to do that. So it's nice. Usually the short-termers don't go into that, but the people that live there will. And it's a great event. It really is.
And talk about the short-termers and the rehab, because I want to tell you a story that we have and the person doesn't live down here, but we have a mutual friend, and her sister has now had a major operation, and she said to her, well, when you're finished, you're going to go to a rehab center. She said, oh, no, I'm not. I'm not going to one of those places. And our friend had to calm her down, and she used the instance of the Regents Park down here, because this is up in New York. Said, wait a minute, can you imagine? And she started telling what it would be like. And she couldn't believe it. She still couldn't believe it, because it's just the old wives' tales, it's an error. It happened maybe years ago where it looked like a sanatorium or something.
Yeah.
It's not what it is anymore.
No. And I think we'll fight this battle forever. But because the doctor will say you have to go to a nursing home. And that's when you get the, oh, no. But yeah, if you Google Boca Raton, nursing home is what comes up first. I mean, that's what people Google. So, it's one of those tough things. No, it's a whole different ballgame than it used to be. And that's why we like to say short-term rehab and long-term care.
I see. That's very good. Short-term rehab and long-term care. That's a very good difference. Maybe an article should be like that, because I haven't heard it done that way, but I know it. I just don't think about it.
Yeah, and it's tough because they, yes, there are long-term residents. 50% are long-term, 50% are short-term rehab. You're going to see long-term residents. A lot of them are totally with it. They just need too much help to live alone. And their quality of life at home with a 24-hour aid versus being at a facility where there's entertainment, people know them, people bring them around. And I just think that some people do well in their home and some people do well in a nursing facility.
Yeah, when they reach a certain point. I want to just tell you again, you're listening to Leslie Curtis, who's the Director of Business Development at Regents Park at Boca Raton. The phone number to call, you can either speak to her directly or you can call and just ask for a tour. Phone number is 561-483-9282. Again, that's 483-9282. Or you can go on their website, regentsparkboca.com, regentsparkboca.com. They have a great website because we have someone who's technologically brilliant about putting on the videos and everything, because you always come to the Boomer Expos, you always come to all the things and everything you do there, whether you're having your speeches. And by the way, people from the outside are welcome to come to the events that you have there. Are they not?
Absolutely. We open it to the public, any events that we have. And we encourage them because, the more that people know, the better off they are. I mean, it just, like I said, nursing home, no. But if they come and tour and see what we have to offer, I love it when they come prior to having surgery. Then we can educate them, and I personally encourage people to go and visit at least 3 facilities so that whether it's for long-term care for a parent or we actually get people looking for long-term care for themselves or short-term rehab, they can see the difference. And then when they make a choice, they're comfortable with that choice. They should know in advance, though. I've said this 1,000 times. They should know in advance where they want to go if they need short-term rehab.
And the one thing we've talked about this before too is you are in control of where you go. Just because your doctor has an affiliation and he says go to that place, and that's not where you want to go because you just visited Regents Park, Boca Raton, and he doesn't know about it or didn't think about it. You can say no, I want to go to Regents Park, Boca Raton, right?
That's right. It's always, always, always the patient's choice.
And the other thing that you told me, which amazes me, you have a Class A, gorgeous place. There might be a Class B. It's the same money that Medicare pays for that Class B compared to your Class A?
Absolutely.
That's amazing to me.
Medicare reimbursement doesn't care where you go. They're going to pay the same amount no matter where you go. So
that's why you have so many rooms filled.
Right. Yeah, we're doing good. So, it doesn't make a difference if you go to A, B, or C. The reimbursement and the co-pays and all that nonsense is exactly the same.
Well, we still have a little time left. I want to just ask you something. So if someone comes in, they're in a hospital, and now they say, okay, we are going to have to not dismiss you, but discharge you. All right. And now they say, where do you want to go? I want to go home. No, you're not capable of going home. You're going to go to a rehab center. All right, you make a choice. They come in and they have now their own. They're not private. They're semi-private rooms.
Some private and some semi-private.
Okay, so they go there. Who watches over them? Tell me quickly if you can, because I don't want to lose this. It's so interesting. What happens?
Well, they come in, and first of all, we get the orders from the hospital for their admission to the facility. So if their doctor follows, that's fine. If he doesn't, then we have X amount of doctors on staff that'll follow residents. We verify those orders, and we actually start with the same orders, basically, that the patient was on in the hospital. Now, the attending physician at the hospital may modify things or change things as is medically indicated. Nursing is there 24/7, RNs, LPNs, and CNAs. And then you have your therapists that are there, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, respiratory therapy, that are there 7 days a week. Most of the time with therapy itself, not respiratory, but the rest, they get 5 out of 7 days a week because the body does have to rest. I mean, if you can imagine doing therapy 2 hours a day, go to the gym 2 hours a day. I mean, I don't know about you, but that would be excruciating. And we're taking someone that's had a fracture or a stroke or whatever, and they've been in the hospital. They can't do that. So usually it's 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week if it's somebody that's on like physical, occupational, and speech. They may give them 6 days a week because they want to continue with the speech or whatever. But that's really determined by the therapist. And then, like I said, the nursing's there 24/7. So that's who's watching over them. And then you have all the other people that are in play, the director of nurses, the all the other staff that is monitoring them all the time. And because now everything's online, not online, but our medical record system. The director of nurses, I swear to God, she's there 7 days a week, but she knows every patient. But even if she's sitting at home in her jammies with her little fluffy slippers,
right?
She could go online and see what's going on with those patients that we know are not stable. So, there's always above and beyond the regular nursing staff, there's other people that are watching over the residents.
I love this. That's what people need to hear, what you just described. Frankly, it's a privilege, and people can say what they want about Medicare, but that is amazing. That's why people are living longer. Mm-hmm. That's why they are rehabilitating so well, and that's really that says so much about what the government did when Johnson came up with the Medicare and all this. And I have to salute you and your organization for caring so much and making this happen. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you so much.